Tropical Storm Lala in the Central Pacific. So Tropical Storm Lala is now in the Central Pacific, southwest of Hawaii, with a position of 20.7 degrees north and 158.8 degrees west. The storm currently has wind speeds of 65 miles per hour and a pressure of 994 millibars. It is moving west-northwest at 300 degrees, moving 14 miles per hour in speed, and this is the latest at Honolulu at 12 p.m. local time. So the wind fields for Lala look like this: 120 nautical miles to the northeast, 50 nautical miles to the southeast, 50 nautical miles to the southwest, and 90 nautical miles to the northwest. So the distances in kilometers for Lala are this: 118 kilometers from Honolulu, 146 kilometers from Kauai Island, 1,210 from Midway Atoll, and 2,052 from Johnston Atoll. In miles, it looks like this: 73 from Honolulu, 91 from Kauai Island, 752 from Midway Atoll, and 1,275 from Johnston Atoll. Now, there is tropical storm warnings in place for these areas: Maui County, which includes the islands of Maui, Lanai, Molokai, and Kahulawe; Oahu, Kauai County, which includes the islands of Kauai and Niihau. I also apologise if my pronunciations of any of the islands were not accurate. So the main hazard for Tropical Storm Lala is flash flooding. As you can see here, flash flooding is the primary hazard for Tropical Storm Lala. Local areas, which include the islands of Maui, Lanai, Molokai, Kauai, and Niihau, will be in potential threat for flash flooding as the storm moves further west. There is many different hazards which the storm can provide, but the primary one is flash flooding. So the NHC forecast cone for Lala looks like this. It remains as a tropical storm for a few more days before, on Tuesday, intensifying into a hurricane. As it moves further west, it actually will move a lot more west than northwest before then taking a more north trajectory towards the international date line. So the storm will not affect very large land areas, but will affect smaller islands along its path. So the sea surface temperatures are abysmal for this storm. They are very, very low, dropping down into the early 20 degrees Celsius as the storm continues to move. It does slightly increase as the storm moves further west. However, they aren't the best of the storm at all, preventing its development through sea surface temperatures. But, of course, as the storm does move further west and slowly northwest, it will get slightly warmer into the around 26 degree range as it moves further west. So the multi-model diagnostic comparison looks like this. The intensity across the board is a gradual increase. Well, actually a gradual decrease, then increase as we move later through next week. The deep layer shear is simple. It drops and then it increases, with most models are very consistent on its increase, peaking in the later stages of that graph. And the track is also quite consistent, moving west and then curving northwest as time goes on. So the precipitation forecast looks like this. There isn't a lot of rainfall as it slowly moves. However, it does increase as it likes to turn northwest. So as it's getting into the hurricane strength territory, it does like to increase its precipitation. That's what the forecast is saying. Not by much though, it isn't a heavy amount of rainfall. Simulation shows it intensifying there, as you can see, and it does slightly get larger as it starts to move northwest. However, it does slowly decrease in intensity after that. But it does remain a tropical storm that intensifies there, as you can see. So the ocean heat content isn't very good for the storm. However, it does get better as the storm does move further west and then northwest. It is around the 15 to 35 range, can drop into the 0 to 15 range, but does go up to the 35 to 50 with a slight bit of 50 to 75 as we get to the 98-hour mark of the storm. And now we will go through various satellite imageries such as visible, water vapor, OTT infrared, ZEHR infrared, AVN, and of course true color as well. So we will showcase those. There is a slight glitch with the true color imagery at the end, and also with the OTT infrared there is some slight blackouts and some black boxes. However, the imagery should be interrupted aside from those parts.